I sat with anger long enough until she told me her real name was Grief. I don't know who said this, but I do think it is a very appropriate description of our experience with grief and how sneaky it can be, and how it comes wearing many faces, many ways. So, welcome to the video. Hey, let's talk about grief. An exciting subject that I think we all can relate to. EDS and grieving are definitely related. They definitely go hand in hand because EDS as a chronic condition steals so much. It gives plenty back, but in ways that I never imagined. So if you're new here, EDS is Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, and that is a chronic condition that I personally have. And so when I'm making reference to chronic conditions, it's in regards to my experiences of EDS and those things that fall under the EDS umbrella, such as POTS, INCAS, asthma, Addison's, or actually for me, I have secondary adrenal insufficiency due to medications and the decline from EDS. I kind of use Addison's and adrenal insufficiency interchangeably. Maybe for those who have primary Addison's, this isn't something they agree with, but my doctor, my endocrinologist, does as well. I kind of take my cues from him. So if you hear me mention Addison's, for me, I'm really talking about adrenal insufficiency. And so I'll try my best to use both terms or remind you of what I'm talking about. Besides the point, let's get back to dealing with the effects of grief and the ramifications of the complications from having a chronic condition. This applies to all chronic conditions that I can imagine, that I know about, that I have friends who have. I can only speak to, like I said, what I have experienced. Please feel free to insert your titled chronic condition in the place of EDS or when I'm saying chronic condition. This video idea actually came to me because somebody I recently met was talking to me about the grief they experience from their chronic condition, which is not EDS, but it had me thinking about the reality of EDS and the continual cycle of grief that I experience as something subsides and something new as my new normals change. That said, grief is a tricky thing. It can look like so many different issues, such as grief is something that most people attribute to death. So obviously when someone dies, there's a grieving process that happens. For example, when my brother passed away, there was a grief, and the pain from that grief, the pain from death, doesn't go away. Time just puts distance between the incident or the terrible thing that happened that caused the grief and your actual grieving. So you experience it differently over time, but it doesn't go away. The first thing I'd like to say regarding grief, it's okay to grieve. Should we look for solutions and avoid focusing on the problem itself so much? Yeah, but grief has its place and we should honor grief for what it is. Otherwise, we prolong it and it can last longer and longer. I want to remind you that grief is like a fingerprint. Really, it's different for every single person. We used to have this idea that grief was these stages, and you can actually look up the specific stages of grief, but let me encourage you to look at it instead of like a linear line, more of a circular or maybe no shape at all, because you may experience the first two stages of grief in order, and then the third one comes and you come all the way back to the beginning, and you might skip around where you may come to an acceptance place. Something new may happen that brings you back to a previous, maybe denial. So you can find all sorts of information on grief. I would encourage you to Google that and see those stages, but I'm not actually going to talk about the stages of grief in this video, I just wanted to give you some thoughts and resources regarding chronic conditions and grief, and let you know that whatever you're facing, it's okay to grieve. It's okay to acknowledge what's lost and process through that. Don't just sweep it under the rug and hope that the lump doesn't grow, move, or trip you in the night, because it will. Pinterest has loads of ideas. If you literally type in chronic conditions and grief in the Pinterest search, you will find loads of resources. It's a really great place to encourage yourself, so consider that. That's a good first stop if you don't really know where to go. One thing I really like are scripture writing plans. You can find these on Pinterest that people have put together, and they're really pretty. They give you the topic and then lists of the scriptures that go with the topic, and you can even get them for months, for days of the week, for specific topics such as grief, depression, anxiety, whatever you want to plug in there. And it gives you a pretty little gift that you can rip off the internet and use to encourage yourself. So Grief has one. The one I found on Pinterest specifically is black with pink flowers on it. Check that out if you are a person who finds value in that. The next thing would be grief prompt journaling. Grief journaling prompts. There are lists also on Pinterest or on Google or whatever site you like to get that type of thing from. But specifically on Pinterest, you can find writing prompts. They might say journal exercises, but there are some that say grief journal exercises, and it gives you sort of some templates that you can read the portion of sentence that's available and then fill it in for yourself. I would encourage you to do some free writing after that even. So you fill in the first sentence, fill in the blank, and then it might give you some things to free write, and that would allow you some processing. Journaling for me is a wonderful way to process. I have loads of journals, and I thoroughly enjoy filling them with my thoughts, my feelings, my ideas, my ramblings, free writing, whatever comes. I like to get it out of my head and onto a piece of paper. Of course, you can utilize therapy. Being a licensed professional counselor, I'm going to throw that in there. Please consider therapy if it's something you need. The next thing I would say would be, don't be too hard on yourself. Grieving, things that you're grieving may have happened overnight, but they may not have. So with a chronic condition, these things are perpetuated by other events, by time, by aging, by the weather, by our body's decline. And so those things didn't happen overnight. Sometimes things do. Either way, grieving takes time. I have lost loads of things. I have lost careers, I have lost relationships, I have lost entire future plans, and I have to rewrite my dreams and my hopes and my visions for the future. I have to grieve through that, and it's hard sometimes. And there are even times that I've thought I've grieved through, come to a place in life that I come to realize I didn't finish processing, or maybe there were some things that weren't bothering me before that are bothering me now through the aging process. Just keep in mind, we're not perfect, we're not superhuman, so be gentle with yourself. Don't punish yourself for perceived failures. Consider nurturing, comforting, self-care. I have plenty of videos talking about self-care, so consider one of those things instead of punishing yourself, because being hard on yourself is only going to make the situation worse. It's not going to help anything. Another thing that helps grief is a breathing technique. There are several out there, but the one that I promote and that I use with my clients is 4-7-8 breathing. There's a wonderful video, I'll try to link it below, that is by Dr. Andrew Vail, and it is really great. It's kind of funny the first time you watch it, and then as you practice it, you will find that it is very helpful. I don't suggest anything to my clients that I haven't first tried, or if I haven't tried it, I do give my clients a disclaimer of, hey, I haven't tried this, but it might be helpful. Please give me feedback on it, and if it's good, I will give it a go, or I'll suggest it to my other clients. I try to be very transparent with that, but this is one that I use regularly and I promote to my clients, 4-7-8 breathing. Another thing that helps during the grieving process is finding things to laugh at. Sometimes when I'm down, I go online and I look up those autocorrect text things where you can read where people's phones have auto-corrected, and I will laugh until my eyes just pour because they are so funny to me. They may not be funny to everybody, but I find them quite humorous. I'm not really into like cute cat videos or anything like that, but that type of thing really makes me laugh. I also like to watch kids doing funny things on videos or fails or whatever, just funny things that make me laugh, and it kind of depends on my mood as well. So find something to laugh at. Maybe it's a funny movie, maybe it's a meme, maybe you can ask your support group or your friends, or get on Facebook, find a support group for your chronic condition and just post on there. I see it all the time on the EDS sites. Hey, I'm having a rough day. Post funny memes or cute dog pictures or cute animal pictures, and people do, they respond and they fill your comment section with funny things. And so find something to laugh about. The situation isn't going to change because you're laughing, but definitely it promotes positive endorphins and positive chemical reactions in your brain and in your system. And if you're having better neurotransmitters flooding your brain, it might uplift you for a little bit, of course. And if you can laugh in the sunshine, even better. Another thing that's helpful, and I don't have the science on this to tell you in the video, but I did want to include it, are finding hobbies that are repetitive, such as crocheting, knitting. I can't think of anything that's not crafty. Maybe if you are able to dribble a basketball or something that is repetitive, if you can go swimming, if you can do things that create repetition in the movement and your actions, it is very soothing and helps your brain process. And there's probably loads of science behind it, and I don't have it, but everything I looked up regarding grief suggested that you use repetitive hobbies, repetitive tasks that provide, I don't know what they provide. If you know, tell me in the comments below. And if you don't know, I guess I'll check it out and be able to answer a question on this later. There are two more things that I wanted to cover. The second to last thing is to visualize. Even though the grieving process is happening, you will get to a place where you can see further than right here. And right here can be really hard. It can feel like forever. But there will be a place where you can begin to feel hopeful and see light, essentially. And if you're working towards that, it goes much faster. If you're not fighting against the grief, it is easier. If you give grief its place, it's a much easier transition and process. That said, if you can't envision your future, if you can't visualize yourself moving forward, you're going to be stuck. So find a way to visualize what you want life to look like. What are your best hopes for your future? What do you imagine yourself doing with your new normal? Your limitations may very well be within your own expectations for your ability. Because as I have said several times, there is ability in disability. You can't have the word without ability. So please, maybe stop and take a moment. Maybe it's a dream board you want to build to visualize. But either way, being able to visualize a future will help you get there. The last thing I wanted to tell you is please check out, maybe I can pop it here. Please check out Ball of Grief. You can Google this and you'll find it, but you have at least seen what the image looks like, and you can check this out and see how complicated grief really is. It is not a list of stages that just move right on as time progresses. It is a wild, tangly mess of complexities, sort of like a bowl of spaghetti. So everything touches everything and things are getting tangled. You pull on one string, something else tightens. So be aware that things are dependent on other things, whatever those things are, fill in the blank, and check out Ball of Grief and see how you relate to that experience. I want to tell you a quote by Zoe Clark Coates. It says, "I know you feel broken, so I won't tell you to have a wonderful day. Instead, I whisper these words to you. Just hold on. As the darkest days of grief start to get less, the sun will rise again for you." Grief doesn't work as a one and done. It's complicated and lasting. You may find yourself angry. I think that feeling is okay. You may find yourself sad or crying. I think that feeling is okay. You may laugh for no reason at all and then cry just afterwards. But the more we're accepting of our experience with our feelings, our trials, and our grief and our hopelessness, but not stay there, the faster these things can move for us and we can process out of them. Know that you have felt grief before and made it through it, and you may feel grief again. I'm betting you will, and you can get through it. If you've gotten through it once, you can get through it every time. It just may take a different approach, a different shoulder to cry on, a different hand to help hold you up, or maybe putting your big girl pants on and doing the hard thing. But doing the hard thing is worth it because it's more valuable in the end when you get what you have worked so hard for, when you come back to a place of hopefulness. And of course, isolation and loneliness don't help anything. They leave us sitting in the middle of our grief. So reach out and find support, and don't do this alone. Anyway, that is my take on a little bit of EDS and grief. I didn't go crazy in depth. I just wanted to offer you guys some thoughts and let you know that you're not alone. Grief is a bully, and it comes to do whatever you'll allow it to, I guess. So keep your power, be aware, and honor the grief that's there. Give it its place so that it doesn't overstay its welcome, and let's move forward together. I would love to hear your stories, or maybe ways you have found helpful to accept your new normals or your losses, because we all know chronic condition comes with loads and loads of losses. So have a great day, and I can't wait to see you here next time. See you later.